Bueno, gracias a todos de nuevo por venir. Vamos a continuar con el tercero de nuestros patrocinadores, en este caso Everis. Les damos las gracias a Everis por habernos apoyado en este evento. Por favor, dentro vídeo. Muchas gracias a Everis. Continuamos con el tercer ponente de la jornada, Alain Thys, por favor. Alain, thank you for coming. Alain Thys, Managing Director of the Futurelab. Alain lleva 25 años entregado a una misión muy particular: ayudar a las compañías a hacer del mundo un lugar más amigable para el cliente. ¡Qué bonito! Y esto es importante no solo porque le apasiona, y él lo hace a su manera, unas veces informal, unas veces más pragmática, a veces un poco ortodoxa, sino porque ha aprendido que colocar al cliente en el centro es probablemente la estrategia más rentable. Thank you for coming, Alain.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. So basically, as was just said, my name is Alain Thys. I'm Belgian, flamenco. Essentially, I'm on a mission together with my colleagues at Futurelab to make the world a more customer-friendly place. And I do that for two reasons. First, because it's fun. I mean, let's be honest. Making customers smile, making customers happy is fun. I mean, it makes your day, it makes you feel good. But secondly, also, it's probably the most profitable thing I've encountered in about the 25 years I've been in business. Actually making customers happy is just good business sense. And it gets very interesting because when you then go around, sort of from company to company, from country to country, I encounter something very interesting in the land of customer-centricity. And that is that every company and every employee I encounter, especially every human being I encounter, is customer friendly. I'm going to do a test right here. Who gets out of bed in the morning with the clear intent of upsetting a customer? Wow, one! First honest person ever. I thought so. But the thing about it is, I mean, I've never met anyone anywhere in any company who says, I hate customers. I'm going to get out of bed and annoy people. You know, it just doesn't happen. But at the same time, there's all these statistics, and there's, I mean, a couple were shown this morning, and maybe this is one which has been around for a while as well from Bain. Companies don't seem to get it. Because, I mean, this is one from Bain where they interviewed CEOs, and basically 80% of the CEOs thought they had a superior customer experience. Now, I'm no statistician, but that's already difficult. You know, it's like 80% versus, you know, is better. But then when going to ask their customers, 8% of the customers agreed. Yeah, I once had one person tell me this was proof that CEOs were delusional, but essentially, there's something going wrong. Yeah? Nobody gets out of bed with the intent of annoying customers or getting it wrong, but at the same time, business seems to do that. So whenever I see something like that, I get curious. So over the past few years, together with my colleagues, we've been sort of investigating So what's going wrong? Because everybody's agreed that customer experiences are important, so we don't need to labor that point anymore. Yeah? What are we going to do about it? And why doesn't it happen? Now, there's a whole bunch of reasons. I've brought 3 along, because otherwise I'd be speaking for 3 hours. But essentially, the 3 I'd like to mention to you today are too much fluffy stuff. I'll explain what that means. Companies rolling the dice, and leadership not walking the talk. But I'll start with the first one, too much fluffy stuff. Whenever I get into organizations, very often there is a dialogue around customer centricity, customer experience, which very much centers around, let's make customers go, wow! You know, or let's hug them, let's spread them. We gotta, I mean, these people pay our salary, we have to take care of them, they are the most important people in the world and all that sort of thing. Sometimes they even get, you know, there's comparisons to Disneyland, nothing wrong with Disneyland, big fan of that, but it somehow limits your credibility if you go into a boardroom with a picture of Mickey Mouse. You know, it somehow breaks the mold, you know, especially if you're working for this guy. Yeah, I didn't work for him, but I used to have a guy like that. I used to be a guy like that. Some of my colleagues still am. But the bottom line is that, yes, everybody cares about customer experience and customer centricity, but it's like caring for the whales. You know, everybody wants to save the whales, everybody even puts a little bit of money into it, but nobody's actually saved one. I mean, that's what I thought. Same with customer experience, same with customer centricity. People talk about it, but if it doesn't show the money, it doesn't happen. And to be fair to CEOs, it's not just bad intentions. Because if you're the head of a company or the head of any department for that matter, you have a very simple choice, which you have on a regular basis. And I like to compare it to the movie The Matrix. Has everybody seen The Matrix, or at least heard of it? Okay. In The Matrix, there's this famous moment where the star of the movie sort of gets the choice between, do you take a red pill or a blue pill? Yeah. And you can only take one, and once you've taken the pill, it's over. You know. And actually, as a CEO, you've got the same issue. If you take the red pill, imagine that you've got $1 million to invest. Yeah? You've got $1 million to invest, and you can allocate it to the red pill or to the blue pill. And the red pill is one of your colleagues coming to you with a profitability optimization program using IT with all sorts of assumptions behind it, which means that at the end, if you invest $1 million, you're going to make $2 million in a year and a half. That's one pill. The other pill is you invest $1 million, and if you do everything that the program says, you're going to have happy customers, smiling faces. Now ask yourself and be honest. Which pill are you going to take? Both. You can't. That's the problem. Because very often you can spend it on one angle, but you can't spend it on the other. And what do organizations, what will they do? Time and time again, except when it's a very visionary CEO, they'll go for the safe option. They'll go for the ROI. Which means that as long as customer experience doesn't show the money, it stays abstract. It's a nice concept, it's a nice to do. Now the good news is that there's already some intuitive cases here, and I'm going to test whether you were actually paying attention to Stephen's speech, because he had the same slide, kind of different, because there is a first intuitive business case which can be done, and I'd like to use coffee, as basically you did earlier as well, to illustrate that, and to illustrate the value of experience. Just to test whether you paid attention. How much would the beans required for 1 cup of coffee cost on the futures market? It was in the slide earlier.
2 cents? 3 cents?
3 cents? Okay, it's basically roughly 1 euro cent, which is $3 sometimes, depending on the time in the market. But it's a very low fee. Now these come in big boxes and containers, so it's not really customer friendly type things. Now, if you take those same beans and you put them in a package in the grocery store, suddenly that price already goes up sevenfold. Yeah? Why? Well, it's easier to go to the grocery store and take it out. Buy them at Nespresso, it's 40 cents. Paper plastic cup from a machine, €1. Put that machine in a theme park. No offense to the theme park people. 220. Yeah? Sometimes the coffee, depending on the park, the coffee doesn't necessarily taste much better. Big City Cafe here in Madrid, you can easily pay €2.50, depending on where you go. Deluxe restaurant, €5. And then there was this one cup of coffee, which basically was during my honeymoon. And basically, my wife and I, we decided to do something different for our wedding. We actually said, you know what, we're going to take all the money we would normally spend on the wedding, give everybody a glass of champagne, and blow it on ourselves on a holiday. So we did have the holiday of a lifetime. You know, we did everything that you see in the magazines. You know, we went to Monte Carlo, we stayed in chateaus, we did everything. And one evening, overlooking, you know, the Mediterranean from a castle, we had a great dinner. It was evening, warm. There was fireworks, you know. I didn't arrange them. I told her I did, but I didn't. And we had dessert, and there was coffee, and a glass of 100-year-old Armagnac, which is very rare. Now I ask you, what did that cup of coffee cost? Anyone? 25? 50? 100? I haven't got a clue. And frankly, I couldn't care less. Why? Because the experience had hit such a high level that frankly, what does it mean? Yeah? What's the cost of a cup of coffee at that point? And actually, as you go through this, what you find each time is that there are opportunities to increase the value of what effectively is a 0.01 euro, a 1 euro cent product, to a higher level by playing with experience. Now that's the intuitive level. Yeah? Now typically companies don't get too hot about intuition either. You know, that's good, that works in conferences and things like that. But there are plenty of mechanisms out there. My favorite is Net Promoter. Who's familiar with Net Promoter? Okay, about 50%. I mean, I won't explain the whole thing, but essentially, there's a number of mechanisms out there. Net Promoter is one of them. Mine happens to be my favorite. But essentially, which allow you to segment your markets in different types of customers. In this particular case, without going into detail, it's based on how likely are you to recommend. Yeah? So how likely are you to recommend a product or a service, which is also a great way of getting at stories, linking to the earlier speech. But essentially, you get three types of customers. You get those who hate you, which is a certain group where you make some money. Yeah? Sometimes you lose money, depends on it. You've got those who are satisfied, but fairly indifferent. And you've got those who love you. And essentially what you find is that the more they love you, the more they talk about you, the more they recommend you, when you hit 9 or 10 in these scores, the more money you make. Which means that from a business case perspective, suddenly, without going into the detail because that would be another 2 hours, but it becomes possible to actually say, if we shift our customers from hating us to being indifferent, or being indifferent to absolutely loving us, we make X more money. So then the question is a very simple one. Is the cost of shifting them over bigger than X? Answer, you don't do it. Is the cost smaller than X? Answer, you do it. Which essentially allows you to break through that dilemma of the two pills. Because now you have a business case. Now you can go in and say, okay, we get happy faces. These happy faces actually translate into extra customer value of this much, which costs us that much, and suddenly you have a business case which is at par, more or less, with the other ones. And I mean, we've run these numbers a couple of times in the past, and the worst we've ever actually encountered, and the math doesn't completely work because there's a negative component in there, but essentially is 2 to 1. In other words, promoters, customers who would rapidly recommend, being twice as valuable as customers who wouldn't. What do you think is the highest we've ever encountered? Anyone? What's the biggest difference you think we've ever, happy versus unhappy, recommenders for the non-recommenders? 20? Anyone more? Usually there's a ping pong of I'll just give you the number. 6,000 to 1. Now this was the cigarette business in Japan. Yeah, so it's like when somebody really becomes, a real promoter of a brand and smokes this for the rest of his life, you actually can get very big differentials. The point being, it becomes possible to actually make a business case. So the first suggestion I'd like to make, if you want to make the business focus on customer centricity rather than talk about it, is have a business case and actually show the business the money. Won't be perfect, but no business case is. But actually transitioning the dialogue from nice and fluffy to hard numbers usually gets people's attention. Which gets me to the second point, which is companies rolling the dice. I have a theory that a lot of companies, actually most of them, roll the dice when it comes to customer experience management. Are you familiar with the expression roll the dice? It's like gambling. You go to Las Vegas and you hope that things go, let's roll the dice and hope it goes well. Yeah? And that is because they're not managing every aspect of that experience. And I'll illustrate that with something from the travel industry, a project we did years ago, but where we looked at the steps of going on a holiday. I assume your bosses let you go on a holiday now and then, so that's, you're in a safe zone there. Nah, you're not sure. Yeah, okay. Gotta have a word. But there's steps, you don't just go on a holiday, you do a number of things in there. And what would be the steps when going on a holiday? I didn't know Spanish people were so quiet. I thought you were lively. Oh, work with me. Search, yep. Buy tickets. Essentially, if you look at it, there's we came to about 15 steps in the customer journey, which range from dreaming of going on a holiday, over research, because before you do anything, you see palm trees or whatever it is, you don't know where you're going. But researching, planning, selecting, purchasing, receiving travel documents, anticipating departure, very big one. I wait to go, Traveling to destination, discovering, experiencing, recording, sharing, Twitter, Instagram, whatever. Traveling back home and sharing my memories, look at these pictures when we were there and, for 2 hours in a row. All these are steps from a customer perspective when going on a holiday. Now, how many travel companies do you know which actually actively manage all these steps? How many do you know? We haven't encountered one either. 0. But from a customer perspective, discover my destination. If that first evening that you arrive in a hotel after traveling for hours, your kids are upset, you're tired, you're hungry. If that moment goes wrong, we actually found that can cost you 2 days of experience value for the whole holiday. So what's happening is that these companies are just rolling the dice. They're just gambling. They're hoping that it goes right at each of these occasions. And what can happen if you really get that wrong, the best intentions won't save you. Yeah, I brought along a little video from AOL. Everybody familiar with AOL? It's like a internet service provider in the States. And they went totally customer-centric, right? They put in their mission statement, we show that we value our customers by serving them well, putting their needs and interests at the center of everything we do. You can't get more real than that, right? It's this vision statement, mission statement, we're going to do this. And then this happened. Could you play the video, please?
America Online is famous for the expression, "You've got mail," but what Vincent Ferrari got when he tried to cancel his AOL account was a lot of frustration. It took him 15 minutes just to talk to a real person. And here's what happened next.
Hi, this is John at AOL. How may I help you today?
I want to cancel my account.
Sorry to hear that. But pull your account up here real quick. Can I have your name, please?
Vincent Ferrari.
Been this account for a long time?
Yep.
It's just quite a bit. What was causing you to turn this off today?
I just don't use it anymore.
Do you have a high-speed connection like the DSL or cable?
Yep.
How long have you had that? The high-speed?
Years.
Well, actually, I'm showing a lot of usage on this account.
Yeah, a long time ago, not recently.
Well, okay. I mean, is there a problem with the software itself?
No, I don't use it. I don't need it. I don't want it. I just don't need it anymore.
Okay. So when you use this, I mean, use the computer, I'm saying. Is that for business or for
Dude, what difference does it make? I don't want the AOL account anymore. Can we please cancel it?
Last month was 545 hours of usage.
I don't know how to make this any clearer, so I'm just going to say it one last time. Cancel the account.
Well,
please.
Explain to me why.
I'm not explaining anything to you. Cancel the account.
Well, what's the matter, Rance? I mean, I'm just trying to help here.
You're not helping me. You're helping me with
I am trying to help.
Helping me. Listen, I called to cancel the account. Helping me would be canceling the account. Please help me and cancel
No, it wouldn't actually.
Cancel
Turn
my
off
account.
your account.
Cancel the
The
account.
worst thing that.
Cancel the account.
Yeah, because I'm just trying to figure it.
Cancel the account. I don't know how to make this any clearer for you. Cancel the account. When I say cancel the account, I don't mean help me figure out how to keep it. I mean cancel the account.
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know what anybody's done to you, Vincent.
Could you please cancel the account?
All right. Someday, when you calm down, you're going to realize all I was trying to do was help you, and it was actually in your best interest to listen.
Wonderful. Okay.
Do you think that Vincent Ferrari felt, what was it again, that his needs and interests were at the center of everything that AOL does? No, it was clearly not. Other question. Do you think that the call center guy was a bad employee? No? It's funny. No matter how often I show this little video, I haven't had anyone saying the guy's an idiot. He should be fired. Yeah? Because we all know he was just doing his job. Somebody came up with a KPI saying, whatever you do, don't let the customer go. You know, do whatever it takes. Jump through the phone line, grab him back, stop him from signing, whatever. And the guy was just doing his job. And essentially, if you roll the dice, that's what starts happening. A friend of mine who used to be CMO at Philips, Geert van Kuik, he used to say that most businesses are optimized for themselves and not for the customer, if you really look at it. And if you look at some data from the UK, essentially you get to very interesting elements there. And that is that roughly 90% of companies, which were surveyed in this particular survey by Bupa, which is an insurance company who wanted to know how well they were doing compared to others, 90% collect customer feedback, one form or another. 50% actually tell their staff about the findings of that feedback. 30% make decisions using those insights. 10% actually do something with those decisions. They actually implement something. They deploy these improvements. And 5% inform the customers of the changes that were made. I'm not going to ask where your company sits. You can sort of test that for yourself. But the message is that very often companies talk about customer, but they don't really map what does this customer journey look like. They don't really listen to what the customer's actually saying, and then they don't really have a process to do something about it. Yeah? Which essentially means nothing gets done. I mean, if you would apply this to quality control in automotive, you'd go to jail. It's like, okay, we've got a problem with our cars, but we're not really doing anything about it. And the thing about it is that unless you have thought through the customer experience down to the last KPI, down to the last department, down to the last individual, you're going to keep getting, and hopefully it's not as dramatic as in AOL, but you're going to keep getting disconnects. And where disconnects happen, you lose customers, or you actually lose the opportunity to delight customers. And that's sort of the second reason, in which the second piece of advice I'd like to give you to avoid that is to help your companies stop rolling the dice. Yeah? First, by mapping, what does the experience really look like? Not from your perspective. Yeah? This is not a process mapping. From a customer perspective, where there's usually surprises you haven't thought of. And then actually translating that through to what does this mean for every person in the company? Because as long as they don't understand what you're talking about, it's nice PowerPoints which nobody really looks at. Which gets me to the final reason, which is leadership not walking the talk. Again, like everybody else, executives love customers. You know, it's like everywhere. And very often, you hear boardroom rhetoric about being customer-oriented. Yeah? And this is where it sometimes gets a little bit painful, but it's a reality. I'm the little boy who's pointing out that the emperor's not wearing any clothes here. Because boardrooms may say, we're customer-oriented, customers important, etc., but they rush products to market anyway, whether they're ready or not, whether customers really need them or not. They encourage cost-saving efforts. We had the example earlier. They encourage cost-saving efforts purely for costs. I mean, we had one client which actually had a target. I'm not saying a metric, a target for the number of people that should get lost in their IVR system. You know, the system like press 1 for this, press 2 for that. The number of people that should get lost. Because it was a cost saving. Because if they didn't get through to the call center, nobody had to pick up the phone, which would save money. You know? So this is, and this goes on, I mean, I take some funny examples, but this goes on everywhere. Yeah? Intentions are great, but when it really gets to it, quarterly numbers, orthodoxies, processes, all sorts of stuff gets in the way. Now, the problem with that is that if leadership does that, if you do something like that, if your bosses do something like that, or your colleagues, employees learn fast, very fast. They learn very fast in the sense that if I want to be customer-oriented, that's going to give me a headache. Because I have to talk to other departments, I have to challenge KPIs, I'll have to make business cases which nobody believes, and all that sort of thing. If I just go with the flow, I've got an easy life. Yeah? I just optimize some metrics left and right, and you know, everything's fine. Which of course is not where you want to be, but it's an unintended consequence of that. And that this can get out of hand because that this actually can destroy your reputation even with your own people, is something the Commerzbank in Germany had to experience a couple of years ago. Because employees, they may go with the flow and they may get smart, but they don't lose their common sense. Yeah? And this was internal data. They had done an internal NPS. Yeah? So just to check how people would recommend the bank. And they found that when they asked their employees, would you recommend the bank to friends or family, 32% said no. 28% said conditionally, which essentially is another way of saying no. As an employer, the numbers were better. But basically that meant that 60% of employees wouldn't recommend their own product. Now, who is the most credible non-recommender? Who is the most credible person that when they say, you know what the idiots did at work today? I mean, we all know those conversations. Yeah? Christmas, Easter, whenever. You know, if you work for the company, people will believe you. Why? Well, you're a privileged witness. You know what you're talking about. But the thing about it is that if you take one employee, on average, one person knows about 150 people. There's this average number out there, you know, the size of a tribe. Their friends, in total, will then know 22,000 people. Yeah? You know what my friend told me that they just did at company X? The idiots. Yeah? So one person can affect, in theory, up to 22,000 people. We ran the numbers for Telekom Austria last week, and we actually found that just on their employees, they could touch every Austrian in the country. Yeah? Every Austrian. So, essentially, what happens is, because leadership isn't walking the talk, employees learn the lesson, and very quickly they don't start acting in the right way, and if you're out of luck, they actually become a force of detraction for your business. So what's required on the other side is a different approach, which is not to tell people what to do, not to tell people one thing and do something else, but actually to create a movement around the customer. And this is very well explained in this short video. Could you start, please?
So ladies and gentlemen, at TED we talk a lot about leadership and how to make a movement. So let's watch a movement happen, start to finish, in under 3 minutes and dissect some lessons from it. First, of course you know, a leader needs the guts to stand out and be ridiculed. But what he's doing is so easy to follow. So here's his first follower with a crucial role. He's going to show everyone else how to follow. Now notice that the leader embraces him as an equal. So now it's not about the leader anymore, it's about them, plural. Now there he is calling to his friends. Now if you notice that the first follower is actually an underestimated form of leadership in itself. It takes guts to stand out like that. The first follower is what transforms a lone nut into a leader. And here comes a second follower. Now it's not a lone nut, it's not two nuts, 3 is a crowd, and the crowd is news. So a movement must be public. It's important to show not just the leader, but the followers, because you find that new followers emulate the followers, not the leader. Now here come 2 more people, and immediately after, 3 more people. Now we've got momentum. This is the tipping point. Now we've got a movement. So, notice that as more people join in, it's less risky. So those that were sitting on the fence before now have no reason not to. They won't stand out, they won't be ridiculed, but they will be part of the in crowd if they hurry. So, over the next minute, you'll see all of the those that prefer to stick with the crowd, because eventually they would be ridiculed for not joining in. And that's how you make a movement. But let's recap some lessons from this. So first, if you are the type, like the shirtless dancing guy, that is standing alone, remember the importance of nurturing your first few followers as equals. So it's clearly about the movement, not you. Okay, but we might have missed the real lesson here. The biggest lesson, if you noticed, did you catch it? Is that leadership is over-glorified. That yes, it was the shirtless guy was first, and he'll get all the credit, but it was really the first follower that transformed the lone nut into a leader. So as we're told that we should all be leaders, that would be really ineffective. If you really care about starting a movement, have the courage to follow and show others how to follow. And when you find a lone nut doing something great, have the guts to be the first one to stand up and join in. And what a perfect place to do that at TED. Thanks.
So the final message is, there's a lot of talk about customer centricity, a lot of talk about customer experience. My suggestion would be to avoid the third trap, which is not walking the talk, is to stop talking. Is to talk much less, promise much less, make less show, but actually do something. You know, set an example, be like the lonely dancing guy, you know, or find a lonely dancing guy if you're not the type to go like this, you know, and start dancing along, because before you know it, more people will see what you mean with customer experience rather than talking, and you don't have to break any promises externally or internally, which also is worth something. So in other words, to conclude, I would say 3 barriers which can be overcome. The first one, show the business the money, make a business case, and transition the conversation. Don't let go of the caring for the customer, but infuse the money element. Secondly, make sure you manage every touch point, not just by making a journey map, but by thinking it through to what does this mean for every department, every employee, every KPI, every process. And finally, don't talk about the customer. I mean, yes, it's always good. The more you talk about the customer, the better, but don't make it empty talk, and just do something. Do something that people can actually emulate. So, as you go away, what I'd like to do is that when you leave today, if there's one thing you can do, I would encourage you to put that in your mind and put it to work tomorrow, because that's where the whole thing starts. That's when you start dancing. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Alain. Gracias, Alain. Ha sido un placer tenerte hoy aquí. Por favor, ya está abierto en el aplicativo, podéis lanzarle las preguntas a Alain, que estará encantado de contestarlas. Y vamos a pasar, por favor, al cuarto patrocinador, Grassroots. Por favor, dentro vídeo.
Grassroots es líder mundial en soluciones de engagement. Nuestros clientes nos confían sus activos más importantes, sus empleados, sus clientes y sus marcas, es decir, su esencia. Nuestra inquietud por el comportamiento humano y por aquello que impulsa a las personas a la acción nos ayuda a entender por qué la gente se comporta de la manera que lo hace y qué les motiva para cambiar su conducta, aumentar su productividad y lograr la excelencia. Nuestra misión es crear valor a nuestros clientes, inspirando a las personas para que consigan los mejores resultados. Desarrollamos soluciones que provocan sonrisas en tus empleados, clientes y canal. La gente feliz impulsará tu negocio. La inspiración de los nuestros inspirará a los tuyos a través de reconocimiento, incentivos o recompensas, para que ellos inspiren a tus clientes y les ofrezcan la mejor experiencia.